the Reputation era, when she has that song, she's like, ooh, you and me got a big reputation. Nah.
Big reputation. Big reputation. Ooh, you and me, we got big conversation. Oh, and you heard about me?
I know people don't want me to bring up Taylor Swift. I know they've had it, but let me simply say something. How is that different from Meghan Trainor? How is that different?
Welcome to Keep It, Cricket Media's show about pop culture and politics and what happens when they smack into each other at an alarming speed. I'm your host, Ira Madison III, a television writer and Fall Out Boy fan.
I'm Louis Fertel. I'm a TV writer and Jane Fonda historian.
Let's get into it.
And we are back with an all-new episode of Keep It. I'm Ira Madison III.
I'm Louis Fertel, and I just want to say to people who are watching us on YouTube, which you can do every week, this is the last bit of Kylie merch I own. I will be returning to my normal clothes next week. But anyway, I'm Louis Fertel, and it's a sad week here at Keep It because after years in the biz, Ira and I are separating from Scooter Braun. And I'm sorry we have to report it this way after such a fruitful and productive partnership.
His bills have been affected. The girls are leaving. Here's my thing. I am like, what's going on?
I would love to know.
Because
it's in droves.
I could get someone leaving Scooter Braun, but my thing is Justin Bieber, Demi Lovato, Ariana Grande. Girl, when's the Ronan Farrow report dropping?
It really feels like some publicists got in a little caucus, said something is up, something's about to come out, because these are the cream of his crop, right?
I know.
Maybe someone also told them that he's an adult named Scooter, and they should just get away. Girlfriend, this isn't the Muppet Show. Don't be trusting people named Scooter.
I'm sure something messy will come out, but actually something messy should come out now.
Meaning?
Listen, I had like so much fun first of all, I was rewatching the YouTube channel and like seeing your face when Punky was like, girl, what's going on in your relationship? And you were like,
I was wondering if they edited that together, me gulping 15 times. I sounded like an idiot.
I mean, it was probably like the Big Brother producers like making like Heisem look evil. It was like, let's make Louis look goofy. But no, I'm feeling like Punky. You know what? I don't think we can say this word anymore. I don't think we can say Eskimo brothers anymore.
Oh.
Can you?
Meaning what?
Meaning, well, I'm here on Fire Island. I've been here all week. I think we finally became that.
Oh, no, I don't want to hear this at all. We're doing this in front of the viewers? Should I leave?
I'm not going to mention their name because I'm not going to be messy. But they are in a show on Broadway, and it does involve a witch. And it does involve our guest today.
Oh, Jesus Christ. And I have to say, we have the guest of guests today. And
yeah, and not our friend who's blonde who's on the show. The dark-haired one.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, there are multiple people we know in the show Wicked. That's right. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, they told me about that in Fire Island this week. And I said, well, I got to mention this on the show. Matt and Bowen would mention it. They'd be messy.
But I was going to say, I wouldn't, and I'm Louis, so how about that? Yeah.
But we do have a guest of guests this week. She is an icon. She's a legend. She's currently the moment. And like sometimes when people say that, it's like they're over-exaggerating because they're gays on the internet. But like this is a real Keep It icon.
And also just like one of these people, like many of the guests we've had, where you can jump to any era of her career and just do an entire interview about that. We did our best to jump around. We have Idina Menzel with us today.
We do. She has her new album coming out. Listen, she's one of the pop girls now.
Which, of course, she has that capability. She's sung everything else before. Of course, she can handle, a bubblegum melody or two, a disco tune or two.
BB Rexa, watch out.
Yeah.
No, like I'm like such a big fan of Idina Menzel, so we're very excited to have her on the show. And also, this week, we asked all of you to ask us pop culture questions, like an AMA, because one, we're lazy.
I have to say, when you provide the content, the show is easier.
We were like, should we play a game again this week? No, you know what? Ask us anything. And you know what? People love asking us anything. And I felt like this was very attuned to you? Because I feel you do like an AMA on Instagram every week.
I do it about once a month, and I have the delusion that people want to ask me questions, and it takes no.
But they do.
Yeah, well, right, but like it's probably the percentage of people who actually reach out compared to who doesn't. You know, like I'm not really taking that into consideration. I'm not really doing the metrics on this, but yeah, it's fun. Also, it's just like you and I will sit here and bring up the same 3 names again and again. It's nice to have like other names thrown into the fray from strangers and friends
Eric
alike.
Roberts.
Oh, have you seen Star 80 recently? It's so good.
By the way, I was thinking that we were talking about I was thinking that I was listening to someone who was one of our regulars that like you bring up, but it wasn't Sandy Dennis. It was Kathy Dennis.
Kathy Dennis is the person who wrote Can't Get You Out of My Head and Toxic, and she was a pop star in her own right who did Touch Me All Night Long and Just Another Dream.
Right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I had some friends watch A Nightmare on Elm Street 2 for the first time, and there is a different song that uses sort of like the same chorus, but it led me to the Kathy Dennis, and I was like, I forgot how fucking good that song is.
That album, she has an album called Move to This. Here's a little secret about me. About 10 years ago, I did a freelance assignment for VH1 where they just wanted us to pitch shows all day to them, and then they would, if they were good, they would buy them off you for like no money at all. It was like, I don't want to call it a scam, but it wasn't like a money making. Yes, right, precisely. It was a money making operation for people that weren't me. And I pitched a show about choreographers, and I called it Move to This, based on that Kathy Dennis album because it's one of my favorite albums.
Wow, you could have your like very own platinum hit.
Yes. Oh my God, you can't be bringing up lesser Bravo shows right here. Look up Platinum Hit with Cara DiAguardi.
Which also, Kathy Dennis wrote Can't Get You Out of My Head and Toxic.
Yes.
And I feel like maybe she should have been in the room during Padam. Because let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Being here, like, as I said, like, I'm on Fire Island. Like, I'm like, towards the end of my tenure here. The song is still going. And some
I'm wearing the necklace right now. I'm wearing a necklace that says Padam Padam right now.
But I'm just sort of like, you know who is not feeling Padam Padam? Anyone who does not suck a dick.
No, I recently I was in a car with my friend Nico, and I put on an older Kylie Minogue song called Like a Drug from her album X, which is one of my favorite songs of hers. And he just goes, do you think any straight person has ever heard the song? And I said, absolutely not.
That reminds me of, so like back earlier when I had first moved to New York, I had my close friend Dan. He hadn't come out yet to like his fraternity brothers. And I remember I posted Kylie, like when In Your Arms, like dropped, like the video dropped. I posted on his Facebook page. This is how long ago this was. And I remember he deleted it off his page because it was like, I don't need people like knowing that I'm gay, etc. But thinking about it in retrospect, can you imagine a single one of his fraternity brothers seeing a Kylie Minogue song on his Facebook page and knowing who the fuck she was?
No.
And then deducing that he's gay?
No, that's just it. You have to have the first coordinate of even knowing who she is to be able to make that deduction. So, no, I think they probably saw like Pig Latin. I don't know what they saw on the screen, not even her face.
And we also have Kyle Turner here to talk about queer film.
He has compiled an incredible list going back to the 1910s all the way up to these days with fabulous movies like Carol and Can You Ever Forgive Me and things we're familiar with. But we'll dig into that whole annal with him.
You know, King Kong is suspiciously missing from that book. And that is a queer film.
Yeah, well, he will be at Folsom this year. Trust me on that.
So we will be right back with more Keep It. One thing about our listeners is that you all have recognized that Louis and I have impeccable taste and have never been wrong, except about Barbie.
And I'm learning. I'm listening to everybody's critiques, and I will get the right opinion soon.
They are still lighting you up about Barbie.
Well, I wish they would find something else to do. Barbie always does. She went and became a doctor and an astronaut.
Adventure Barbie.
Yeah.
She's in the woods. So we decided to do a pop culture AMA, Ask Us Anything. Technically AMA is Ask Me Anything, but it's two of us. So it's like, I guess it's a AUA?
Sure. It doesn't roll off the tongue. I don't like to say it.
Yeah, it really doesn't. But we're going to go with some of these questions.
Can I start with one of my own?
Please go.
Okay, good. Because, of course, my questions are equally as fascinating. Name a beloved song you never want to hear again. Can I start?
Please go.
Girls Just Want to Have Fun. I simply don't want to hear it ever again. First of all, girls are not a monolith. I think she made a leap she shouldn't have with that song. And then secondly, when it comes on, I'm just like, it feels like we're at a carnival. I can't stand the clamor of it. It's too annoying, and she's not an annoying vocalist. Like, I love Time After Time. I love Change of Heart. I love Hole in My Heart all the way to China. All through the night.
It is well that you picked that Cyndi Lauper song, because I wouldn't say that's my pick, but if I ever hear fucking True Colors again...
particularly at an emotional moment.
It's like, okay, and people are always like, oh, doing like an emotional cover of True Colors for like Pride or something. It's like, I don't want to hear that shit.
No, unless you are literally the Crayola Pride campaign, I do not want to hear that.
Beloved song that I never want to hear again. Oh, you know I love Hall & Oates.
Uh-huh. Yes, I'm already shocked that you have brought up Hall & Oates.
Right, because like I like heard it the other day, and it was like, oh, there was like, I was like, oh, I have my like tattoo, my like Hall & Oates tattoo, and it was like, here's my thing. I love a lot of their songs, but I actually don't need to hear Rich Girl ever again.
Interesting.
I don't like it.
I was wondering if maybe you were going to say the one that went viral in that video like 15 years ago, Making My Dreams Come True or whatever.
Oh, I love that one, though.
Okay, you can keep that one going. All right. I love all Hall & Oates.
One thing about my dreams, I'd like them to come true.
Okay, that's what I'll remember about those. No, I was going to also say, speaking of them, after last week when I said I'm still a fan of Charlie Puth, in his Hall & Oatesiness, he came out with a song that is good.
Lipstick.
Yeah, love it.
It's a very good song.
He does call women bitches in it. Unfortunately, he's in a genre I call rhythm and douche. And you just have to expect that sometimes, okay? Misogyny is part of the game. Sorry.
You know what? Like he's like, you know, like he's trying to be like, you know, like a white Tupac, like a white Biggie. You know, he's like, you know,
acceptable things like a white Tupac.
These bitches be doing it, you know, and these bitches gotta know. I was one of the funniest like tweets I saw about it was. He had like tweeted like lipstick out now, and someone was like, Rihanna when you want new music from her.
So good.
But it is good. It's like sultry. It's sexy.
Yes,
I like it.
He lost the sultriness before, and he's gotten it back. Anyway, let's get back to these questions. One of them is from one of my favorite follows on Twitter, Wonderkind87. Hi, Yannick. What are the best worst TV shows based on a movie and best worst movies based on a TV show? Best worst TV shows based on a movie. God, that's really hard. The Other Way, I think The Fugitive is one of the best movies based on a TV show. It's also a Best Picture nominee, which it was the first at the time, that kind of adaptation to get a Best Picture nominee.
Yeah, I would say that I feel...
Ooh, the Mission Impossible movies, of course, too.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And also,
I mean,
it's based off a Martin Landau, Barbara Bain series that we have a blockbuster universe based off that I should be very thankful about.
Listen, my friend, my girl was on the show, and the show got canceled for a reason. Because I will say, a TV version of True Lies, what were we doing?
Who was in that? Oh, no,
Ginger.
from a couple weeks. Yes, of course. Yes, right. I saw it.
What were we doing? She
Yeah.
was like, what am I doing? She was just collecting a check. I know that. Because it's like True Lies. It's just like the thing about True Lies for me. Here's the thing about like adapting a movie into a TV show. A movie, like the movie is sort of like the movie can be good and the movie can have a good concept. But the thing about a movie is that like it also captures like a cult, like Barbie is so big because it's like a cultural moment, right?
Yeah,
You know, and like the reason True Lies is so big was because it involves like Jamie Lee Curtis is like doing like the strip tease and like that sexiness there. It's just like it's interesting and fun because Jamie Lee Curtis is in it doing this part. Like you sell movies based on the movie star who you're going to see doing something. So when you adapt a movie that people famously liked for a certain reason into a TV show with like other actors who have never been like in that thing, it's like it's never going to translate because you're never going to be able to recreate that moment that was it, you know? And like,
yeah, that movie was defined by star power for sure, definitely.
Heathers. Need I say more?
Yeah, I thought the direction of Heathers was the worst part, actually. It's like you could hear the funny jokes in there, but they weren't landing. It's like every joke was in outer space or something. Here's a good one from The Professor. Favorite song from an artist you overall don't like? This is shady right off the bat. I'm trying to think of somebody who do I hate and yet tolerate every once in a while? Well, I'll say this. I obviously don't roll with like dad music, generally speaking, or rock music is not really what I listen to. That said, if you put on Do It Again by Steely Dan, honey, I feel like dancing and put like flipping burgers and shaking it in the yard.
You don't like Steely Dan?
I mean, I like Brooklyn, the song Brooklyn by Steely Dan, but I'm not like a careerist of theirs. I don't know everything they've ever done.
First of all, whenever we get on this podcast, you're basically reeling in the years.
Ricky, don't lose that number.
Who can I talk about? Okay. Yeah. And it's like,
it's not that I hate them.
Bringing up Charlotte Rampling, you're like, do it again.
Do it again.
Okay, here I will say, like, and listen, she's got some bops, a couple, but like Meghan Trainor.
I was gonna bring up her.
not really our girl.
Yeah,
but the song No.
I was gonna say No is definitely her best song, and you put that on. Now I'm on a treadmill.
It's a bop, and also that's a song where it's like, give it to like any of the like other pop girls, and like people would have been standing it.
Can I say something just provocative? I know people don't want me to bring up Taylor Swift. I know they've had it. But let me simply say something. In the Reputation era, when she has that song, is it Endgame? And she's like, ooh, you and me got a big reputation. Nah.
She does.
And you heard about
big
me,
reputation. Big reputation. Ooh, you and me, we got big conversation. Oh, and you heard about me?
How is that different from Meghan Trainor? How is that different? The
Meghan Trainor's never booked Future.
Okay. I'm just saying, it feels like the thing that people consider cringe about her is like rad about Taylor Swift. Okay, moving on. I don't want to get in there. I'm going to be shot. Okay.
Also, Meghan doesn't have a reputation.
Right,
because
she can't
no one
sing
talks about her.
Seems like a nice girl. She has, as a mother. Remember that song? Here's an interesting one. Ungraceful G says, who are the most boring celebrities that Hollywood keeps pushing? I mean, my answer would be most of them. People are like perpetually boring now. You know, people don't want to, they're not pot stirrers. They're not going to give you an interview like Noah Galvin did that one time where he's like, let me call out every bad person in Hollywood. Noah Galvin, bring that back.
I love Noah. And that was honestly one of the worst crimes against a celebrity that was ever committed. Like, when he said all that wild shit in that Vulture interview, and then everybody was like, oh no, you need to walk that back. No, it was like, someone was finally being fucking interesting and talking about like what you all say anyway. And it's like, oh, okay, you can't drag Bryan Singer?
Right.
Like, you're really looking for a Valkyrie sequel?
Yeah. You know, I've been waiting. I think Tom can really nail it this time.
Boring celebrity. You know what? I don't know if this is boring, but there are like a couple songs that I sort of have liked of Phoebe Bridgers, but I will say that overall, she's kind of boring. And I saw a tweet the other day where someone was like, people have been sort of getting like misogynistic with her because like she broke up with like a beloved actor like Paul Mescal. And I was just sort of like, honestly, he's kind of boring too. And I feel like the internet likes him because he's like, he's hot and like he's Irish, he has a little accent, and we saw him like fucking in Normal People.
Sure.
But like, other than that,
great
like,
actor. Yeah.
Great. Listen, you know, young actor, young performer.
Yes.
After Sun.
Of course.
was ready to turn it off, and I did turn it off because it wasn't good, and I didn't like it. And I think that both of them were kind of boring, and people were like, oh, people were dragging her because, like, maybe she, like, broke up with Paul Mescal to, like, be with Bo Burnham, whatever. And I'm like, it's the maybe of it all that is so boring, okay? Like, Ariana Grande is out here as, like, you know, tip on, you know, cheater floors, okay? Like, she's adulterating all over the place.
Yeah.
And
Stepping
people are
out,
standing
stepping
her.
in. Yeah, right.
Girl, people are, like, standing her. And I'm like, people are standing Angelina Jolie. And it's like, yes, I understand that, like, there's bullshit misogyny that is always, like, thrown at celebrities and stuff. But it's also just, like, the entire thing about her and Paul, like that maybe relationship, whatever, it was just like a lot of maybes, and it was never really confirmed, and it all just felt very like, oh, you're sort of interested because these people are pretty and like whatever, and it's like, I don't know.
I will
Like,
say, sorry, what's the name of that group?
Bridges over troubled water. I'm bored.
Okay, Phoebe Bridges. Sorry, what's the name of that group? Boy Genius, right? She's in that group.
Yes.
Okay. That album was pimped to me 100,000 times. I'm not saying it wasn't like good, and I think the three of them have a fun dynamic together. They performed on Kimmel one time. I watched them in the audience. I don't know that I was obsessed with it. I sort of missed. I didn't really get it. That's all I'll say.
Boy Genius. The only Boy Genius I know is the smart guy.
I'm gonna say, what about Dexter, honey? Yeah.
Oh, welcome
Honey, we're in the
to.
laboratory now. It's Cartoon Network and it's 1999, bitch. Okay, let's see here. Here's one from Instagram that basic, but what is your favorite TV show of the past 5 years? You know what I think I would say? First of all, my mind immediately goes to a limited series space, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I feel like maybe that's where the best TV has been in limited series over the past few years. I think I would say Mayor of Easttown is my favorite show of the past 5. Just a traditional mystery with one exceptional performance that I did not expect. Did I ever expect Kate Winslet to go to Pittsburgh, know what that is, be able to spell Pittsburgh? No. She's married to somebody whose last name is rock and roll. Her life is crazy. So for her to make this show, and I thought it was so good. I even like the end of the mystery, which if you look at the history of the mystery genre in movies, rarely are there good endings to mystery movies. You know,
That's true. They're usually bad. Honestly, I know there's like a lot of limited series and things, but if I'm talking like a series that, you know, has had like a couple seasons and like more is to come, P-Valley. I fucking love it. Fucking love it. And I think it's really good. And I would like more people to be watching. Like, we're on like the strike, like the writer's strike. It's like more people should be watching P-Valley. Evan Ross Counts, watch P-Valley and like put some memes up from that. Okay, like instead of just like White Lotus and just like that, because I'm tired of them white women. Like P-Valley, the girls are popping their pussy and serving.
People don't know the show. It's on Stars, and it's about a strip joint, and the characters are fabulous. We had the creator on years and years ago.
Katori Hall,
yes, right, yes, the great Katori Hall.
I just think it's like a really good show, and I think it's just like it's written beautifully. The characters feel very real, and then also like there's the athleticism of just seeing like, you know, the whipping, you know, like doing their thing.
Which, you know, I don't get to see in real life because I don't go to those kinds of clubs. So it's actually an anthropological show for me. Most disappointing celeb industry encounter. I can think of one because I thought it was going to be amazing. So I was at the TCAs, which is where, I've explained this before, it's where twice a year TV shows trot out their casts, and then like the media gets to interview them, ask questions of the creators, whatever. It's when shows are introduced to the universe. It's sort of an old model of television. But anyway, one time, years and years and years ago, Mamie Gummer, the daughter of Meryl Streep, was in a Shondaland show called Off the Map. And, you know, I'm excited to talk to Mamie Gummer, whatever, right? Because, you know, as a reporter. Shockingly, I'm walking through the hallway, and Mamie Gummer sees me and walks up to me. She's walking at me. This is the daughter of Meryl Streep.
Okay, she's gumming.
Yeah, she's gumming. Right? She's smacking her gums together. Yeah. She comes up to me, puts her hand on my shoulder, and goes, "Your fly is down." That is among my worst moments. And by the way, you know my underwear was like fruity and faggoty. So like it. So she got a glimpse. And I was like, wait, stop. Your mom has 21 Oscar nominations. Talk to me. How about you?
Honestly, okay, so this is gonna be messy, but whatever.
Okay, hit it.
That's who we are. So like I was at the SNL after party once, and I met Jon Hamm.
Oh, sure.
And I was like, I'm friends with Kiernan, so like we chatted about it. We recorded like a video and sent it to her,
Cute.
And it was like a few months before then I did Watch What Happens Live.
Oh, right. Yes. Uh-huh.
Yes. And Jon Hamm was on it with John Slattery. And then
You were the bartender, yes.
just stabbing me in my ego, Jon Hamm came up to me and said, "Nice to meet you."
Oh, that's too bad. You can't
And I was
expect
like,
celebrities to
"Oh."
remember people, though.
I know. You can't expect to remember it, but I was like, we turned up.
You should have burst into tears right then. You're like, I sat
was
through Tag
sobbing.
for you.
Honestly, I did watch Tag.
Is it okay?
It's good. I like to Tag. You know what else I watch it? I watched that Fletch movie.
Right. No, but
I
heard
watched it
that
on
was
Delta.
okay.
You can listen, I watched it on Delta, 4 vodka cranberries in and on an edible. So that I was living.
No, wait. Jeremy Renner is
It
in
could have been
Tag, right?
Tar.
Yes.
Yeah, it could have been Tar.
Do you know what yes. Wow. Do you know a movie I had never seen and I finally watched last week? Do you know North Country with Charlize Theron and Frances McDormand? Anyway, it's about like women they work in mines in Minnesota and they're being harassed on the job by these
I
other
know
workers.
of it.
Okay, right.
Never a film that I intend on watching.
I had a couple hours and I
But
went
I
for
love
it the other day.
I love Charlize Africa.
Right.
But I don't want to watch her doing that.
Jeremy Renner is in it, being absolutely disgusting. It's actually an awesome performance, but he's so gross. It's like, I can't believe that was the Jeremy Renner we got pre Hurt Locker. Like he really transformed in the public eye.
You know what's kind of wild? I feel like maybe he took like a different turn with like his public persona and like doing like the Hawkeye-ness of it all, but like he really could have been like eating Casey Affleck's food.
Right.
Like he's very Casey Affleck, and I honestly think that like in a world where like he was putting a bit more effort into it, like Jeremy Renner would be like he'd be better than Casey Affleck. Because the problem is that like Casey Affleck's like actually a really good actor.
Every movie I've ever seen him in, great.
He's fucking amazing, and I feel like Jeremy Renner could have really been doing that, but he was busy making apps.
Yeah, what a mysterious trip. And of course, he's recovering from a serious accident also. But no, you're right. He could be playing like blue collar heroes, for all of us. Your turn, Ira. Do you have a question?
I do. This one is just for you, Louis.
Okay.
The Beths, I'm trying to pronounce that correctly. The Beth ST wants to know top 5 Jane Fonda performances.
Holy shit.
And for me, I'm going to be like a girl monster-in-law.
I know, right.
So
as Jane herself said, whenever black people come up to me, it's monster-in-law. Didn't she say that?
She was doing it.
Yeah.
She was doing it. She was doing it, okay?
Okay,
on.
I would say my favorite Jane Fonda performance is her first nomination, which is They Shoot Horses, Don't They? I talk about that performance all the time in this podcast, which takes place in a dance marathon in the 30s. She comes in, she's this hardened bitch who needs to like compete in this horrible pageant in order to make money, and it's one of the most cynical movies ever, but it's my favorite performance of hers. Second favorite, I would go Clute, which she won her first Oscar for. She's a call girl in New York with Donald Sutherland, another actor we love. Next one would be Julia, which is where she plays Lillian Hellman, one of the playwright and renowned liar who just made up this entire lark about her life that turned into this movie where she goes and has this childhood friend who becomes this kind of revolutionary, and it's about their friendship. Lillian Hellman didn't have a friend like that.
I heard the Children's Hour was actually only 20 minutes.
You exaggerate and it becomes an hour. Yes. Let's see. I love Jane in The China Syndrome next, where she plays a TV reporter who stumbles on a big nuclear meltdown. And then the last one, she was in a movie a few years ago where she reunited with Robert Redford called Our Souls at Night. So good. It's on Netflix. And it's written by the people who did, I think, The Disaster Artist, Scott Neustadter, whom I love. He's on Twitter. So I think that's the 5 I would pick.
Okay, great. Film.sorbet wants to know, What movies deserve to have their own themed restaurant?
Wow. Let's see here. A movie I'm re-obsessed with recently. Have you ever seen Party Girl with Parker Posey? Have we talked about this?
Come on, baby. I'm at the park. Okay. Like I'm
You're parked
parking.
and posed.
Okay. I have my parking pass.
I just think it's one of the funniest performances ever. So that immediately came to mind.
And so early in her career.
Yeah. But also during that like indie time where she's doing like 14 movies a year. That just came to mind because I want like a 90s queerish themed restaurant with like a dizzy hostess who's drunk and getting arrested. How about you?
You bringing up Parker is funny because like, you know, I was recently rewatching Scream 3 because the original unedited cut leaked online, and so I was watching that, and it's fucking great. Basically it's like it's the same movie but it's longer, and there's like the kills are more brutal, like they spend more time in like the scenes and stuff. Like it feels like a real lived-in movie that Wes Craven would have made, and then it was just fucking edited to hell so it could be like, you know, 30 minutes shorter. But
that movie feels very chopped to me. Yes.
Yeah. But I feel like a Scream restaurant would be fun.
Oh, of course. How does this not already happen? How am I not walking down Universal City Walk and Ghostface isn't ushering me to my table?
Also, a Dick Tracy restaurant would be great.
I mean, it would be better than the movie, which I famously do not like. Though I do love Madonna in it. Yeah.
You know I love that movie.
I just think it's like The Simpsons, one of the ugliest things we've ever put on TV. Whatever you do, put more yellow in front of me.
Well, I mean, I thought you were talking about all the gangster villains in it because the faces are ugly.
Oh my God! I just saw some promo shots of Al Pacino and Madonna like boogieing down together, and he's in all the prosthetics. Woof, guys! I mean, I can't just look at that. It's just so ugly. It's so ugly.
Girl, it's giving Grindr at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay, it is.
It's giving Steelers at 4 a.m. Yeah. And here's our last question. This is from Luxury Trash. What often maligned Oscar win will you defend with your dying breath?
I know, maligned Oscar win. Actually, someone had asked in one of the questions that we didn't get to, they had asked, why has Tom Wilkinson never won an Oscar?
Fabulous actor.
Like, he's great in The Bedroom and Michael Clayton.
Right.
But I will say, the In the Bedroom year was the Training Day year, and I will defend Denzel winning for Training Day any day of the week. I think he fucking kills in that role. And I think people are like, you know, like it was one of those like, we're going to give him the Oscar because like he didn't get it for Malcolm X, but it was just like, he is living that fucking role. Like Training Day is his movie.
Good answer. Because you're right, that did feel like a career win at the time. Even though, of course, he had won for Glory, but that's a supporting win, and therefore it doesn't matter.
No.
I will go with...
Julia was like, you're going to give that man another Oscar. My Denzel?
Man, I love them together. Can we get that going again?
Girl, where's the Pelican Briefs to?
Please. Your lips to God's
the
ears.
Pelican Briefs.
Yeah.
The Pelican Boxers.
That was among the dumbest comments I've ever heard on this show. And believe me, I've ranked them. I'm going to go with Elizabeth Taylor's first win in Butterfield 8. That's a movie that, talk about it. She had been through it by that time. Famously, her husband had died in a plane crash. She was sick. People thought we might be nearing the end of Elizabeth Taylor's life. Ooh, were they wrong. But this movie is basically considered a camp classic. And the reason it's considered campy is because of the opening scene where she's writing on this mirror and lipstick. And at the end of the movie, it culminates in this chase scene that feels very tonally disparate from the rest of the movie. But the rest of it...
By the way, that lipstick scene has influenced so much of gay culture.
Like, it's definitely RuPaul's Drag Race. Yeah.
Which Diana Ross film?
Is it Mahogany?
I think it may be Mahogany, where like she's writing on there. Yeah, like that is. It's just like the lipstick writing on like the mirror. Like that is iconic. Now.
Totally.
It's just like it's in there, and people don't really know it's from Butterfield 8.
And also, but in the movie, her line readings are so deadly and she is so funny. It really is a reward for a star performance. And really, when you look back at the history of Oscar wins, not too many wins that are, oh, here's just a star giving us everything, as opposed to like a compelling or gritty or real performance, you know. Like you don't get like an Oscar win for like a Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. You get an Oscar win for Julia Roberts, you know, fighting for a community in Erin Brockovich. So I really applaud not just the performance itself, but the kind of performance it is. You know, it's like if Tom Cruise won an Oscar or something.
I mean, listen, I will always advocate for like Tom winning, you know, for like, obviously, you know, like his best role, like Magnolia, like that. But like, I would have advocated for Tom winning for an Oscar for like Jerry Maguire too. Like,
totally.
I'm always on the side of rewarding an actor for a star performance. I don't think it always needs to be a very serious, like we're doing like a film, you know. I'm like, you're a star, you are delivering, you are also like, the reason why this movie is a hit, the reason why people love it is your performance. Like, you made the movie, you made the hit, you made the box office. That is what we should be rewarding. Right.
And weirdly that year, Jeffrey Rush, a Best Actor winner. It's just so interesting. Like that, you know, it's so like...
Girl.
You don't talk about Shine that much. Why?
We don't talk about her. Jeffrey Rush, Jeffrey slowed down, okay? She's still making them Pirates movies.
He's really good in Shakespeare in Love, though.
He is really good. Listen, I'm not dragging Jeffrey Rush down. I mean, he's a great actor, but, you know, like, I think we talked about this on the show before. No, don't nobody give a fuck about Shine. And no one cared about it when that came out. That's giving payola. It's giving slander. It's giving attack against Tom Cruise. It's like no one was watching Shine. Who has seen that movie?
It's like, no, there are a couple Oscar wins back there, like James Coburn winning for Affliction. Are we sure that's a movie? Because I haven't seen it.
Right. They're like, okay, before we wrap up, like this, like, give me like another one where it's like, truly, like someone won for a movie, and like, I mean, like, I'm sure you've seen it because, like, you know, like you.
I have a disease. I have to see them.
And you're supporting it, but it's just like.
It's like Jim Broadbent and Iris.
Yeah.
You sure?
Okay, right. Yeah. Movies where it's like nobody saw that shit.
Right. Okay, we'll be on the case for this next time. Movies that turned out not to be real. But anyway,
we will be right back with the wild partyly talented Idina Menzel.
Very good.
You see what I did there?
Yep.
Yeah. Keep It is brought to you by Helix. If your spine needs a little TLC, and I'm not talking crazy, sexy, cool, Helix mattress has got your back. Pun intended. I was doing the most there, Louis.
You were on the TLC tip.
Ooh. I was on the TLC tip.
There you go. Every Helix mattress has a hybrid design combining individually wrapped steel coils in the base with premium foam layers on top. It's the perfect combination of comfort and support. I can say this firsthand. I have one of these mattresses. I still use it every night. It's not like I go to some other mattress in between and cheat on it. No, I only use this one. From August 21st through September 10th, Helix is having a Labor Day sale. Get 25% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for this limited time with the code HelixPartner25. The Helix lineup offers 20 unique mattresses, including the award-winning Luxe collection, the newly released Helix Elite Collection, a mattress designed for big and tall sleepers, and even a mattress made just for kids. But who wants those? Take the Helix Sleep Quiz and find your perfect mattress in under 2 minutes. Unlike other brands, Helix mattresses do not contain fiberglass, which can be harmful to your health. In fact, Helix owns its own manufacturing facility, which is entirely free from products containing fiberglass, so you can rest easy.
Oh, that is really good because, like, my girl Snow White was like sleeping on this glass mattress. A lot of people thought she was dead, but she was sleeping on this glass mattress, and like, it was not comfortable.
No,
and these dwarves kept attacking her.
Right, and they're nibbling at her ankles. As you know, they're short.
Helix is offering 25% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners in honor of Labor Day. So go to helixsleep.com/keepit and use code HelixPartner25. This is their best offer yet, and it won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts now.
Our guest today is an actress, singer, songwriter, uncut gem, Broadway icon, and a voice your kids can't get ready, let go of. Her new album, a dance album, Drama Queen, is out now. Welcome to Keep It, the magnificent and incomparable, and of course Tony-winning, Idina Menzel.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I bring you
Hello.
everywhere with me for that introduction?
Sure. Oh, please. I'll be like a little carnival barker for Idina Menzel. That'd be fun. Now, I want to say I first saw you perform a song off this new album at the GLAAD Awards a couple months ago. I mean, not that this would be a new experience for you, but what is it like performing for, you know, a room full of, I'll say it, haughty and elite gay people?
Now, did you say hottie or haughty?
You know what? It's a little bit of both. I have to say there's a Venn diagram mix there.
It's thrilling to perform for haughty, and hilarious, and I'm trying to think of another H that's really good.
Hellish. Yes.
Heartfelt. What did we say? Gay people? How did you?
Yeah, that was the term I used.
I don't know what I'm allowed to say.
We've said it, trust me.
I've asked all my gay friends if I'm like, is it okay if I'm on stage? And I go, how are my gays doing? They're like, it depends which gay people you ask. I'm like, okay, well, is it okay if I say, where are my bitches? You're like, that depends too. I said, all right, you know what? I'm not going to say any of that anymore.
You've earned the right to call us anything. Anything Larry Kramer called
Right.
us. So
I'm just trying to keep up on what is okay and what isn't okay, and also be normal. And you know, the thing about the Pride festivals, like, it's different than from, you know, doing a Broadway show or something, or even singing at like a performing arts center, because everyone's packed up against the stage. You know, I can literally touch people. They're right there. I can see them. They're not like sitting politely in their seat, you know, ready for the overture to begin. And they're rowdy and they're beautiful and they're emotional, and I can, you know, hold the mic out and they sing songs. And I've had dancers now, which I held off on having dancers for a long time. I thought, I'm not really a good dancer, and I don't really see myself as like the next Janet Jackson or whatever. So, but there's something about having a few dancers around you that brings some good stuff out of you. And if you're a singer, people don't expect me to dance at certain parts because they want me to ground myself and sing the big notes. So the expectations are low. It's kind of like when Whitney Houston was doing it, you know, like, not to compare myself to my total idol of Whitney Houston, but you know, like when you're singing, you don't have to be the great. We know that she wasn't the best dancer, you know, so you can just do a little like side step together with a bunch of hot dancers.
There's also something actually about pop singers doing less dancing than the people around them that's a little bit glamorous too, right? You know, like I delivered the message and somebody else performs the emotion.
Exactly.
Jesse Ware, you know.
Yes, definitely.
But I leaned into it, you know, like this new album's called Drama Queen, and one of my favorite songs on it's called Dramatic, and I leaned into it. I wore a rainbow colored puffer jacket that was like 15 feet long, and the guys were kind of like my bridesmaids, and they held it out behind me, and I worked it. It was 100 degrees out, and I wore that puffer coat.
I mean, I guess it's not shocking to hear, you know, that you're like, you know, like you're not a dancer, but did you ever find that dancing was something that you were like, is this something I want to be interested in when you were doing Broadway? Or were you just like, you know what, I'm going to be the singer and I am never going to do a show where like you required me to, you know, be dancing, you know, I'm not doing anything goes.
Okay, so I danced, and I was on toe shoes for 1 year when I was 12, and I realized toe shoes are loud and not graceful sounding at all. But you can't hear it. You can't hear it when there's an orchestra or it's on PBS special or whatever. But it's like clunk, 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 clunk. It's not. You don't feel graceful. That and my boobs coming out was like, I'm done with this. And then I was always just, you know, I could move okay, but I never say never. I will do what anyone needs me to do, and if the role is great, but I also don't want to, be delusional. But if it's something I need to do, I will require, and I have required tutoring from usually the assistant choreographer, who is this wonderful job it is to take me into the room, the B studio on the side, and try to get me to learn 8 counts in 4 hours. I can't get the memory thing. You know what I mean? I can't pick it up fast. Even when I was younger, I couldn't like 5, 6, 7, 8. You got it, everybody? Now go. Like chorus line. That gives me so much anxiety.
No, there's a real the fluency factor to dance that is different, I feel like, than other forms of entertainment.
Yeah, not good. But it's funny, in a lot of bios I see about myself, it always calls me a triple threat, which I think is so funny because I'm not. But I'm sometimes they say I'm a triple threat because I write my own music. So that's like my other. But in Broadway terms, that's BS.
I was thinking about how your new music, which is dance music, some of it, the producers on this album, including like Nile Rodgers, I mean, you really got like the mavens of dance involved in this. If I had to connect it to what I consider your familiar catalog, I guess it would remind me most thematically of Life of the Party from The Wild Party. And I've always wondered if that song specifically spoke to you and, your spirit when you're performing.
It's funny that you brought up that song because I used to perform it a lot with orchestras and my own concerts, and then I haven't sung it in years. And then the first single was coming out, and I went, it was a bar that we went to out in Brooklyn. What was it called? Where we showed up and we hung out with everybody and we played the new music. I'm forgetting right now the name of the bar. I'll get it. And one of the performers that night lip synced to Wild Party and tried to get me up there to sing it. And I couldn't remember any of the words couldn't even sing the high notes. I didn't know what I was doing. But so that was random that you just brought that up. What was the question?
I always just felt like, I mean, if this album, which I feel like you put out being like, well, this is like, I'm a drama queen, whatever. I feel like the sentiment of Life of the Party is somewhat similar.
Yeah. As I recall, that character, Kate, was quite a drunk and was probably super depressed if it was the 1920s or so. So she didn't have her Prozac to fall back on. But,
You've done the dramaturgical research on this. Yes.
Yeah. I'd like to say they're connected, but I think they're actually on opposite sides of the spectrum. So, because I saw that character as being kind of dark and wounded and very desperate. And drama queen is like a celebration, I hope, and it's joyful and it's party, and in that way, it's also an album where I'm thinking less about. I spent less time overthinking and trying to contemplate what was the expectations people had of me and what kind of music I just want to do because I want to do it and I love it and it'll be fun to perform. And if I'm being honest, the only thing I gave real thought to or deliberated was that this music, dance, disco music, really lends itself to big voices. So I could really sing the way I love to sing. I don't need to hold back and make it more vibey or to fit in with the pop sounds of today or whatever. If you embrace the nostalgia and the retro of that time, it's Donna Summer, it's Gloria Gaynor, it's Diana Ross, it's Barbra Streisand when she did her, her dance.
No More Tears.
Yeah,
oh, yes.
It's like... So we can do that, and we can bring the drama and it can still cross over and be cool and you can still dance to it. And then when Cher came back later with her whole dance album, so that was sort of what gave me, I felt like I had permission to do that. And I called Nile Rodgers honestly and said, do I have permission? Is this okay? And he was like, yeah, let's get started. So.
I was angry at Louis for bringing up the Wild Party before I could. I love the Lipa version, obviously. What was interesting is we recently had Toni Collette here, and I asked her, if she remembered anything from that era where she was in the other Wild Party, when there are 2 wild parties going on in New York. Do you remember, anything from that moment of just, either friends or, people being, wait, am I sure I'm going to see yours? Did I accidentally go and see this other one like across 8th Avenue or something? Like, what was that like, just being in a show where like there's also literally another one happening now?
I just remember feeling badly for the creators, for Andrew Lippa and for Michael John, because they were creating their own thing for years, and all of a sudden it comes out at the same time. You know how that happens every once in a while. So I just felt badly for them, but we were like the little off-Broadway, lower budget version, and they were the big Broadway version. And all of us got bad reviews, so it didn't really matter. And my fondest memory of that time was my relationship to the cast, because it was, off Broadway. We were all girls were in one one dressing room, like a chorus dressing room, everybody together, and the guys were like just a curtains away. I guess it wasn't very gender friendly back then, was it? Girls and boys dressing room. But I remember that we all were super close because of that, because we were sharing the space together, and we said, okay, if we don't get a rave from Ben Brantley and the Times, and we're not like moving to Broadway, then let's also book a trip together that we all get on a plane 2 days later, in case, and we did. We booked a trip to the Dominican Republic, and we all went away together.
I love that.
We just drank. We drank our sorrows, and yeah. And I remember the review. I don't know why I'm bringing it up in this interview, but I remember what he said about me in that review, and it always bothered me. Obviously, because I'm bringing it up now. He called me shrill. It always bothered me because I thought, well, there's a difference between being projecting and being a big, belty voice, and being shrill. So I think that stuck with me, and I don't know whether I really believed it was true in that show or not, but I always sort of think about that and how to make sure that really like coming from a grounded place, no matter what dynamic it is, that it like, you're not just angry or expressing to like be sarcastic or angry. There's always coming from a warmth, an experience, kind of feel like shrill means disconnected. And you can like, when you're mad at someone, they hear you, and you could say it really loud, but you can say like, you fucking asshole, don't walk out the door, But if you're like, you fucking asshole, don't walk out the door, that's very shrill and nobody's listening to you. So I kind of put that into singing too. And be like, you fucking asshole, don't put out the door. You know what I mean? I'm not making any sense. I'm a little delirious, but there's something to that.
I associate you with, of course, Broadway now, like all these like dance stages you'll be taking over the summer promoting this album. But I also, of course, think of you as you perform so many times at like the Oscars or the Tonys, or all these times where there are these one-off moments where everybody's watching. Do you have a favorite one-off performance you've ever done that maybe was on TV or something, and just the reception you got? Was there any one, like award show, for example, that stands out?
The one-off moments are the worst. Because you never can feel completely comfortable in your surroundings, the sound that you're hearing, your microphone, what's slapping back at you. When you're on the road or you're on doing 8 shows a week or whatever and play, you're used to what you hear, and you can start to get comfortable and everything, and have fun. And you know what you're wearing, and you're used to it. If you're wearing heels or you're not wearing heels, and you're in your tight dress and you're not, or a weird costume, you're used to it, The one-off things, usually I wear something so I feel really good, really high heels, tall, so I can feel thin, and then I'm like teetering on my heels, and then the sound's weird, and you just can't like enjoy yourself, So that was the first thing that came to my mind when you asked me was no, never. And then like another time I did with Wicked, I was on David Letterman. First time David Letterman my whole life. I always watched him growing up, and they put me up in we had this levitating device thing, on Broadway. It was this hydraulic thing, and you get in, you strap yourself into this thing to make sure that the computer said, oh, she's safe, she's in, she's locked, now it's going to go up. And on Letterman, they just used like one of those camera cranes, you know? So they put me in and just like, woo, which in a way, it kind of worked, and it was probably a lot less money than what the producers ended up using for Wicked all these years. But I remember being hoisted up, going, it's me, and going up there. And then they just left me up there. And then they go into commercial. Now David Letterman usually comes over and shakes your hand. Hey, he couldn't shake. I couldn't even shake his hand because I'm up in this thing. And I'm like, hi, Dave. You know, stuck up there. It was just, like every time it's just something a little unexpected. And then, you know, the Oscars, that was a fiasco for me. So it's like, I'm trying to think of a good experience. Another time I was doing New Year's Eve. They're all bad experiences. New Year's Eve, Times Square. I decided I was not going to lip sync a song for that. And I wanted people to know I don't lip sync. I do it even though it's 0 degrees. And a lot of people sing to track because it's just so cold on New Year's Eve at Times Square. And I said, no, I'm going to do it in its original key. People are going to know. And then I got up there. I was wearing those heaters you wear when you're skiing, you know, and like under my boobs and on my back and on my hands. And I looked heavy because I had so many layers on. And then I got to the last note and I totally cracked. And then everyone wrote about how bad I was. So thanks for bringing this up. And
it's like a trick I'm playing or something. Oh God. No, I mean, like, I'm a huge fan of the Carpenters, for example, and they performed at the Oscars once a song called "For All We Know," and historically, that's like one of the lowest moments for them. Like, it sounded so bad ultimately.
What did they say?
They just the sound was horrible. They couldn't hear themselves. And the next time they performed at the Oscars, it was a complete lip sync, which you never think about with Karen Carpenter.
Yeah.
So you're.
And then you feel bad for Milli Vanilli. I mean, look at those poor.
they looked amazing. You know what I mean?
But they got such shit for that, and you know everybody just does it.
What I want to ask too about this album is, obviously, I feel like the thing that everyone's talking about is you're making TikToks for the album.
Sure.
And they are, you are on the app. Every time I'm scrolling, you're popping up in my For You page, and I want to know. Are you coming up with like were you just like, I actually like making a TikTok? Or are you just like, you know, I'm doing this to promote the music, it's what I got to do? Or are you like, you know, are you like on TikTok daily now that you're making content for it? Like, are you scrolling? Are you watching things?
It's a little of all of that, I would say. So the first reaction was, what? Nobody cares about what I'm doing in my refrigerator, taking out a gallon of milk and then singing my song. Like, what is that? That's how you want me to promote the music? Or like, you know, but then I end up having fun doing it. Then I get a little too, I care too much about whether it's being seen. See, that's the thing about it. You get sucked into this, you know, who likes me, who doesn't like me, how many people decided to, you know, all that. So, but then I also want to see what actually is more viral or what just sinks, you know. It's the weirdest thing. The ones I spend the most time on, I don't get that many views. And then the ones that's just like, hey, you know, in my kitchen when my dog walks by, is like, you know, millions of views. Like, seriously? So,
I feel like it rewards that, though. Like, I feel like the ones that I always see, and maybe even the ones that I feel like I'm stopping and watching of anybody on TikTok, it's always just someone like they're walking down the street and they just decided to say something quickly, or like, you know, like they're in their car or something. It feel like it rewards very like off the cuff. Yeah.
But that's so, I can't think of the word, but it's contradicted to the idea of needing to make sure things are perfect because everybody sees you at every minute of the day now. So it's like, not only is everyone seeing you, but you have to not have makeup and make mistakes in order for it to be good. But if you do something that's a little wrong, or you spell your caption wrong, or do something like that, and then someone goes, oh my God, she wrote vain instead of vain. VAIN instead of V. You know, it's this. So I can't even caption it without spending 3 hours on my grammar, you know. And then by that time, I just handed over to Gio, who's here, my good friend, who's my hair and makeup. I'm like, can you please tag whoever's supposed to be friggin' tagged in this? Because by the time I do it, I'll And then my son thinks it's all lame. He thinks like that all the stuff I'm doing is just that he needs to be paid to be my TikTok, advisor.
Do you at all miss like the Broadway world before social media? Like, I feel like that's a time that's now extremely romanticized to me. Just like it was a community and you went to go hang out and it really didn't have anything to do with, oh, I'm watching this like video of you at a bar or whatever. It was really a be in with each other thing, and that's how you experience Broadway.
Well, that's what I mean. It's about live performance, and live performance isn't perfect all the time. That's what actually makes it so thrilling and compelling and really speaks to you and deep in your soul, or you get goosebumps. It's not because it's perfect. So that I resent it, because I feel like now everyone's phones, even if they sneak them, if they hear you on a matinee on a Wednesday, and my kid had a fever the night before and he's snotty, and I decide I'm going to snuggle with my kid and not, quarantine myself because I have a show to do. And then I come down and I'm congested as can be and losing my voice, but I'm up there because I don't want to call in sick. And then someone hears a bad note, and then it's everywhere. And then they say, she's not really, someone can do the role better than her, blah, blah, blah. It's just, it's not for the faint of heart, And I've never been one that really could say I don't care what people think of me, because I do, so.
I will say, though, as not social media and phones, but, as a, someone with a theater degree who grew up like loving theater, being in Milwaukee, and then Chicago. I first was introduced to you from they definitely weren't cell phones at the time. They had to be someone using a small camcorder, but a Rent bootleg and a Wicked bootleg. And you sounded great on the ones that I saw.
I don't know. That's the other thing is with autotune being this thing that everyone uses no matter what now in the studio, just it's a producer's tool. I think people's ears are, they're hearing perfection of a note. I don't mean to get too inside, recording, but it's just things have to be right down the middle. If there's a little flat, a little sharp, which is what makes us human. I think people just, their ears are not, they don't hear that anymore. They're used to this very specific sound. And so I don't know, maybe it's because I go back and I listen, I think, oh my God, how did I sing like that? But no one would have heard it that way back then, because it was normal. Now everything's like Kanye West's album when he did that. What was that, when he first came out with all that auto-tune stuff on it?
Oh, 808's Heartbreak.
808's
Yeah. I want to ask one last question. Speaking of, I brought up Red. I first discovered that in high school, and then obviously, I saw the bootleg, like I said, and then was finally able to see a touring version, and then I was able to see the film, and I feel like it's had such a long life, and people still love this show, and there's so many iconic songs in it, but what would you say is the song that maybe from Red that pops into your head the most, or you see that people maybe bring up the most? I feel like usually it's like Seasons of Love. Like you'll have at maybe a important moment, someone's performing it on a show or something. But I have to tell you, Take Me or Leave Me, I see done all the time.
I know.
People are always performing that. And I feel like, is that the one that you hear about from people the most, or is that what comes into your mind the most from the show even?
Well, it's hard for me because when I go on tour, I do that song. I do a couple things. And that's one of the songs I do, and I go in the audience and I recruit people, and for better or worse, we discover some amazing people and some we don't. But so I do it all the time. So it's in my, it was in my DNA because we created it. But it's just always around me. The song that I also do all the time that I never get tired of singing is I came up with my own arrangement of No Day But Today, which. Song, I wasn't a part of that scene, my character. I was in the finale part of it, but in the actual show, but I just always loved that song so much. It was one of my favorite songs. And so I do an arrangement of that. And for me, it's kind of like a mantra for me, or sort of a touchstone every night when I go out there to kind of ground me. It gives me an opportunity to sort of express gratitude to Jonathan Larson, to the audience, to the people that knew me from when, bought, tickets for the front row and slept outside, to who've, meeting my first husband. It's just a time in my life that was, was so deep for me. And also really speaks to trying to stay in the moment, and stay present for things. And I think especially in our industry, it's just, you just can lose sight of that and lose perspective. And I think the greatest gift that Jonathan gave us was to be able to slow down and realize how fleeting life is, and to really try to not take things for granted. And so that's, I don't know, I'm not great at it all the time, but I might, I try to incorporate that into my world as much as possible.
Well, thank you so much for being here. One thing that is a guarantee in our future is we will always have exciting Idina Menzel material, whether she's performing live or in some rad movie or in some rad show. So it's nice to catch you just in the middle of it before you springboard to your next 50 amazing things.
Oh, you're so sweet. I'm a fan of you both, and thank you for asking me all. Those are good questions you asked me. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
It was
an honor to have you here. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Cariuma, the cool, sustainable sneaker company with old school style and new school ethics. As summer starts to come to a close, do not tell me that. We need a pair of
Fall's
shoes.
coming.
Yeah, fuck you. Nobody has ever once said, what's the song of the fall? You know why? Because there isn't a song of the fall. No one's doing jack shit. Fall sucks.
It's September.
Horrible month. Enjoy your pumpkins or whatever the fuck you do with your time. As summer starts to come to a close, we need a pair of shoes that are versatile, seasonless, and go with everything. With over 40,000 five-star reviews, Cariuma's got you covered with shoes that have a classic look, are crazy comfy, and consciously crafted to transition you from hot summer days to crisp autumn evenings. Worn by celebrities and praised by publications like Vogue and GQ, these kicks are a cult fave, and we absolutely love them. I can attest to this because I am wearing them right now. They are slate gray, and they are comfy as fuck, and they really are the ultimate transition from summer to fall shoe. So I might say that September 1st is Cariuma's season.
Let me tell you, I feel like a cheetah girl when I am strutting in my Cariumas.
Oh, well, that's diagnosable. I don't know why you feel that way, and you should keep it to yourself.
And also, the Aka canvas shoe is the classic and breathable staple that's sure to make your daily rotation this season and beyond. It's designed for everyday wear, made with organic cotton canvas, and comes in neutral shades like white, gray, sand, blue, and black. The perfect pair to complete all your summer outfits and transition into fall. And now, the Aka we all know and love is made for kids. Aka Low Kids have Velcro straps and extra cushion for easy and comfortable wear. Match your littles and make it a bundle by adding a pair for you. They're 100% vegan and carefully crafted with organic cotton canvas, made for our little tree partners, earth lovers, and mini explorers. And let me tell you something, Louis and I love chaperoning trips to the museum.
I've got all the bag lunches in a big laundry basket. Cariuma is always keeping it fresh with epic collaborations with brands like Peanuts, Deus Ex Machina, and Pantone. A new collection of colors is released in collaboration with Pantone every season. There's something to love for everyone, and sure to be shoes that will make a statement. Cariuma is B Corp certified and has a dedicated reforestation program based in the Brazilian rainforest. Their co-founders, David and Fernando, both grew up there, so this project is especially close to home. For every pair of sneakers sold, Cariuma plants 2 trees, and they've already planted over 2 million trees to date. Cariuma ships all their sneakers free and fast in the USA and offers worldwide shipping and 60-day free returns. They deliver right to your front door using single-box recycled packaging, and for a limited time, Keep It listeners can get an exclusive 15% off your pair of Cariuma sneakers. Go to cariuma.com/keepit to get 15% off. That's cariuma.com/keepit for 15% off, only for a limited time. Tell Bashful, and Doc.
We have a special guest with us this episode. He is a writer and film critic whose book, The Queer Film Guide, chronicles the history of queer storytelling since the beginning of motion pictures. It's an incredible archive of history that we're so happy to shed a light on. Please welcome to Keep It, Kyle Turner. And I have a question. Why is salt not in your book?
Yeah, what? What gives?
Salt is not in the book because there's not enough latex, honestly. I mean,
there's really not. There's a lot of wigs, but there's no latex.
Right. I have the Portuguese film O Fantasma, which has a gimp suit in it. So if there was a gimp suit, then it would be in the book.
I have to say about the list of movies you compiled, this, first of all, it goes all the way back to 1918 and the famous German film Different from the Others, the best title, all the way up to, looks like Fire Island here, which came out just last year. Are there titles in here, first of all, that you're surprised made it into it, or are surprised didn't make it into it, and how just impossible was it to compile all of these movies into one book? It just feels like an unbelievable task, and I don't envy any of the work you had to do.
It was a really, I felt like a great deal of a gratitude for being able to have the opportunity to make a book like this and to compile a list. And I obviously am indebted to Vito Russo, who wrote The Celluloid Closet. It was originally like a lecture series that he sort of took on the road and then made into a book in 2 different editions. But then I also consulted friends who are really incredible archivists and programmers like Juan Barquin, who's based in Miami, and Fung Lei, who's based in London, and Elizabeth Purcell, who's an archivist, especially of like gay porn cinema. They all had like really interesting input. The original list was like 186 films, and I wanted it to be idiosyncratic enough so that like you can Google best queer movies and come up with 100 lists on the internet anytime. But if I was like trying to encourage people to have something in their home that they could refer to, I want it to be like a little weird and a little fun, so that you have things like Desert Hearts and Bound next to Jennifer's Body and Seed of Chucky, next to My Hustler and Scorpio Rising. And I wanted to really like examine how queerness could manifest as different things aesthetically or narratively or within character or within point of view. And I guess the things that I was most surprised to that did end up in the book was I feel an incredible amount of gratitude that they let me put Boys in the Sand in there, which is the Wakefield Pool porn film that came out in 1971, I think, 1970. That came out before Deep Throat. And it was one of the films to launch this idea of porno chic, and that porn cinema could be something that was like an event, that like it was the first porn film that was reviewed by Variety.
Wow.
Okay, come on, Variety.
They're like, the box office, and this is going to be boffo, they screamed.
I actually have a question about like how you were even deciding to comprise it, because like you said, like you had like a larger list and then like you cut it down. Like in creating a queer film guide, was there ever a point where you're like, okay, here are some films that have maybe gay moments or elements in them that are maybe like, now we look back on them, they're like maybe like gay panic moments or like awful, you know? I'm thinking of like something like Soap Dish or something, like, for example, you know, were there moments where you were like, is that a film that you considered maybe even including, or films like that where you're like, it is sort of an awful moment like that represents queerness, but it is also representative of like the attitudes of people towards like trans people in 1991, you know?
I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think there are definitely examples of films that I think are important to queer cultural and queer cinematic history that are controversial or problematic or you have to wrestle with. Soap Dish is not one of them, because I even though like there are parts of that film that I do like, I don't think it is like contributes to queer film history in a productive way. Whereas something like
It's like a gotcha twist.
Yes, yeah. Whereas something like The Boys in the Band, the William Friedkin film that's based on the Mark Crowley play, is very much an artifact of its time. I know that some people like it. I like the play. But it like is very much enmeshed in a sort of like proto-Velvet Rage, self-loathing. I don't know how to deal with the fact that I'm gay, and I'm beating myself up about it, and sort of trying to buy into like bourgeois, middle-class America isn't working for me because they didn't want me anyways. And I know that some people like don't care for confronting that aspect, even though I think it's very much a lived reality for a lot of people. And then there's something like Cruising, which is also directed by William Friedkin, which was protested upon its announcement and during its release, so much so that they had to re-record a lot of the dialogue. And so some of the disembodied voices within Cruising, it sort of adds to like the surreal effects. But like that film was coming out at a time where it does show the attitude that especially the police have towards queer people. The New York Anti-Violence Project was created within the year or so during its production to combat like real anti-queer violence within the city. But I think that film is interesting enough, and I think has enough good faith, or at least ambivalent faith, to examine like the structural issues of like where white queer people especially fall into positions of power, because it's about Al Pacino, who's playing a rookie cop, and he goes into the New York BDSM leather scene to investigate a series of savage murders. But during this time, like as he's going through these like leather clubs that really existed at the time, like the Ramrod and the Anvil and whatnot, he sees the way in which these social spaces are using the iconography of fascism, of Nazism, and fetishizing them. And while like you can't say writ large that all people who are into leather or into BDSM are also into fascism, it is undeniable that like the aesthetics of kink and leather are derived from very similar places as fascism and Nazism. That's just the reality. And although like it's tricky to conflate those things with like the sort of rise of power within white gayness, I think it's like a really instructive object or artifact to consider like how queer people interact with power, and to what degree trying to attain that power is even worth it, if it means like selling your soul and becoming a cop. It's like very ACAB movie.
I'm also super interested in how you chose the movies from like the past 10 years, because obviously we have way more movies to choose from nowadays, whereas like, you know, if you're going back to the 1960s, you're picking like a movie like Victim, which is very out of step with the time in terms of how like blatantly gay and kind of pro-gay it was. Mm-hmm. Was it hard searching through the past 10 years of movies? I imagine it was just impossible to pare down.
It was a lot of fun just paring down, and it was a matter of like, do I want to pick the thing that is obvious and that has made like an enormous contribution to queer culture and the way that queer representation, whether in front of the camera or otherwise, is most easily seen? Or do I want to pick something that maybe people haven't heard of or don't necessarily think is queer? Something like Seed of Chucky, which I think was like relatively popular at the time, but I don't think a lot of people will necessarily think, oh, that movie has like a non-binary / bigender person sort of as a main character.
That one was for me, okay? Seed of Chucky is that girl.
yes, Seed of Chucky, just icon, Glenn or Glenda. And it was, and also like the book also has 200 movies technically, because you have 100 main entries, and then each film has a sidebar recommendation, a wine pairing, if you will. And so it allowed me to sort of like slip in things that if I were going to highlight something like Brokeback Mountain, which I need to write about. Like, regardless of my own personal feelings about that film, it's fine. The Wedding Banquet is better. But it really did open the floodgates for queer representation and queer filmmaking in Hollywood, in mainstream filmmaking, in a way that very few films have. But it also means that I get to pick something like The Wedding Banquet, which comes in the early 90s. So I get to have both of those sort of complement each other. Because if you're not familiar with one, you get to look at the other, see how it sort of sets up a blueprint for what queer movies can look like in the future. And then you have something like Professor Marston and the Wonder Women, which is by the same director of Debs. Both Professor Marston is the main entry and Debs is a sidebar entry, but I get to cheat a little bit and still pick a bunch of movies from the last couple of decades to show the wide breadth that queer cinema can encompass, especially now that we have a slightly more democratized access to those filmmaking tools. We have a slightly more democratized access to these movies in general so that they can inspire other queer artists and filmmakers and creatives.
We should say that the reason you bring up The Wedding Banquet is because Ang Lee also directed that.
Yes.
And just to say some of the movies he chose from recent years, it's everything from Brokeback Mountain, as you said, to Carol, to Spa Night. Andrew Ahn also directed Fire Island, which is on this list. Zola, Can You Ever Forgive Me? Now, see, that's a movie where I would say, oh, that's like a mainstream movie that people have heard of. But honestly, do people remember that movie? That to me is part of the hard. But what's hard about compiling a list like that is what feels obvious to us is people don't remember at all. Or
right,
even though
right.
Melissa McCarthy was obviously nominated for an Oscar for it, and Richard E. Grant.
Yeah. And for those of whom that are in LA, I will be doing a double feature of Can You Ever Forgive Me and Happy Together, the Wong Kar-wai film, which is also in the book, at the American Cinematheque Los Feliz on September 1st at 7 p.m.
Oh, well, you have to go to that. I love both those movies. Fabulous.
I think you were talking about, the democratization too of queer films now, and especially now as you get into the present, there's a lot more queer films that we sort of can get, but also they're for different audiences. Obviously, have Fire Island, and you have a Bros, and then last week Lewis and I talked about Red, White, and Royal Blue, and Lewis also just during the week offered by recommendation he watched Passages, which I love, and sort of where do you think we are right now in terms of queer cinema and where it's going to be going in terms of adding things substantive to the canon?
That's an interesting question, and I think it is reflective of an even broader idea of where we are in cinema and pop culture, generally speaking, because we don't really have a zeitgeist anymore. We don't have a monoculture anymore. And even within these sort of subcultural communal spaces like the queer community, those things are being split up even more. And on the one hand, I think it is very good that we have more options for more audiences, for people to engage with different kinds of things. On the other, I do think that it is frustrating that a lot of the ways in which streaming platforms especially are inclined to make a certain product to cater to an audience that is that wants to consider queerness within a more limited idea. I do find that personally frustrating just on, an aesthetic level. What I hope is that with these platforms, that there will at some point be a prioritization of there being a central hub for people to be able to look at these things. I know that when I was younger and getting into queer film, I had to actively search for these things, and I liked the process of looking for kinds of representation or kinds of reflections or different stories that didn't reflect my experience and could expose me to other kinds of experiences of queerness. And my worry is that these platforms are de-incentivizing that process and de-incentivizing a more holistic way of engaging with queerness as a creative point of view or a political point of view. And I hope that at some point something comes along where all these different experiences are not only more readily available, which they appear to be, but will encourage their audiences to seek out other things beyond just Red, White, and Royal Blue, or beyond just Bros or something, that they are sort of willing to place themselves within like this broader lineage of queer cinema and creativity. I'm glad that there are these alternative venues and channels, like a movie that releases passages, or even a Strand releasing, which has a long history of releasing things by like Greg Araki and Andrew On and whatnot. They just released Mutt, which is pretty solid. And I have hope. I have hope that the kids... I actually just spoke to a group of students at Barnard recently, and the movies that they listed as their favorite were like really interesting, and I do have hope for the children. And Whitney Houston was right. The children may be our future. I'm on board. Some of them listed like Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, which is a Nakisa Oshima film with David Bowie. Someone mentioned M. Butterfly, the David Cronenberg film that's based on the
2.5 star movie for me, but good attempt.
Good attempt.
Jeremy can do whatever he wants. He messes up sometimes, but he was good in that movie.
But
You're
yeah,
not a Cronenberg girl, though, Lewis.
No, as you know, I think something's wrong with that man. But
something's so right with it. Wait, Lewis, how do you feel about Crash?
oh, that's his best movie, I think.
Do you like Videodrome?
I do like Videodrome.
Less so. I like the idea of Videodrome. No, I was going to say though. Well, I think a problem with streaming platforms is, I mean, they're thinking in terms of demographics, and when they put, first of all, it would be conspicuous if they had no queer content, so they're going to have to produce some of it. But I think most of the time those people produce queer content for women. It's like that's the demographic that would actually consume that. So when you're watching something on streaming that's about gay people, you have to be thinking about like women who are 35 and up. I think that's who they're marketing it towards, which is different than queer content for queer people.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And the way in which these things are like hyper categorized and broken down into different genres and whatnot, I don't think that is necessarily conducive to exploring like the fluidity and the expansiveness that queer identity and queer experiences and queer cinema have to offer.
I think we're all the same. You're wrong.
I feel like that's sort of a thing that I had brought up online once, when people were discussing, whether or not like whether you agree that like Looking was like good or not, like a show like that, like you think about like the success of RuPaul's Drag Race, and like, there's been a contingent online and where it's just sort of like, well, this show isn't really for us anymore. And you're like it started as being for us, like with RuPaul sort of like doing his thing. But then, like to be like a successful show, to be on this many seasons, like you have to have a female audience, the demographic watching it, and I think about the way that so many women on TV historically, like Sex and the City, or like Golden Girls, it's like these things have been written by men. Ally McBeal, they've been written by men for the consumption of women, and so it's just so interesting that like the queer stories that we see on television and like film and like especially on these streaming platforms now are going to be largely created, for the consumption of a larger demographic, which includes women.
Or just not straight men.
Right. Looking wasn't really successful because, like you look at that show and it's like Andrew High is like, he's making it very pretty to look at, but like are women, like are the masses like watching that show and being like, they want to talk about it every week,
I had a conversation with a friend years and years ago in Provincetown, and we were talking about how there wasn't this sense of, exciting danger to queer art and queer film, which is like a very broad generalization, of course. But we joked to each other that maybe it was a little better when we were a little bit more marginalized, just a little bit.
You were up against less, I guess. So you just like, you had nothing to lose sort of feeling.
Yeah. You could make something that was full of like fury and anger and anguish, like a Living End or like a Poison or whatever. And like its function was to be provocative. And while I do believe that like there's still work out there being created in that vein, I don't know that I don't think it's getting necessarily the same attention. I do think that there is like somewhat of an acceptable, anesthetized and aestheticized version of like what queer movies are like really exciting for, Oscar season and whatnot. They've got lens flare and kind of faux naturalism about them. But I am happy and excited for like whatever comes next, hopefully.
Well, Maestro, that nose is LGBTQ.
Yes, yes.
Famously.
The Maestro nose was seen at Pieces.
Thank you so much for being here, Kyle.
Thank you so much for having me. I just want to say I've been a huge fan of your writing, Ira, since you were at MTV News. And
thank you.
And Louis, I showed my mother verbal voguing when I was like 12.
Oh my God.
And my mother
Jesus
did not understand it.
I was gonna say, do you guys still have a relationship?
No, we do not. We do not.
Original recipe, Louis. Wow, yes. Oh, how nice of you. Thank you.
And we are back with our favorite segment of the episode. It is Keep It.
Oh, I'm here. I'm awake. Sorry. I'll participate. Hi. Me, Louis Vertel. My Keep It this week goes to an article that I actually think I generally liked. Did it have to be this rude? I'm talking about this New York Times article, What Happens When a Pop Star Isn't That Popular? And there's a triptych on the article of Ava Max, Carly Rae Jepsen, and Kim Petras, and the subhead says, Pop's middle class enjoys loyal online fan bases. For these artists, pop stardom isn't a commercial category, but a sound, an aesthetic, and an attitude. It's literally saying they're unpopular. What the fuck are they doing being alive?
Kill yourselves.
Yeah. From the New York Times. At the onset, I thought this was an article that didn't need to be written. What kind of pitch is, what if some people weren't as popular as other people? Like, that's always been true since the beginning of time. Some people are superstars, some people aren't. But it basically gets into how these people now occupy a space that once belonged to the label indie. People were obsessed with seeing them, particularly at live shows, etc. They have moments where they sort of scratch the surface of stardom, but ultimately they just have these loyal fan bases.
The solo Debbie Gibson. She's no Madonna.
It's written by someone named Shad D'Souza. Basically, if you're a Carly Rae Jepsen fan, it feels like a slight to you and your identity. So I felt a little bit chosen and a little bit attacked. But at the same time, I think it makes a case that, it's sort of random who gets to be a superstar and who sort of floats in this middle ground with people like Ava Max. And I did not realize, it says Diamonds and Dance Floors, which is Ava Max's last album, spent 1 week on the albums chart. That is sort of surprising for someone who debuted with Sweet But Psycho, which was a top 10 hit.
Girl, that album went triple cardboard, and I still love her. But Diamonds and Dance Floors, like, the dance floor was evacuated.
Also, that album is so good. Okay. I just feel like it would have legs,
Cubic zirconia and foreclosure. Is what it really was. And I love her. But when we talk about Ava Max, it's like nobody else. This is like the same thing I was saying with Padam Padam. It's like I bring like Ava Max and like anybody else who is not like a gay who was up in the club, they're like, who?
No. Also, Kylie Minogue was counting her lucky stars that she's not in this article.
You know what I did love? That they put my girl Charlie in there, but they were like, it was also sort of like, it felt like a teacher giving a report card, because it was very much like Charlie XCX was like topping the hits with like, like I Love It and like Boom Clap. And then like she was, experimenting with pop and just sort of like not charting. But now she's back with like Speed Drive and like her other recent stuff. And it's like when she tries, she can get a hit. And it's like, okay, girl, leave her alone.
A joy to have in class when she comes in and gets a C-. Yeah. Ira, what is your Keep It this week?
You know what? My Keep It is also to the New York Times.
Oh, take that, the gray lady.
Unfortunately, this article comes from a friend of ours.
Oh, which one?
David Mack. But I will say, okay, so like he wrote an article for the New York Times where it's just like, it was an analysis of like, it was breaking down like new information that like what gay men do when it's their birthday. They write, send nudes, and people send nudes to them. And I was like, one, stay out of gay people's business, New York Times. And two, it's not even really a keep it to the New York Times. I have always found that concept wild to me. I've never been a person who's like been like it's my birthday, send nudes or something. I mean, like, are you that kind of person? I just like, I feel like when I see someone do that, I'm always like, girl, go do something else. Go to a movie.
I just feel like it has extreme loser energy.
It does.
It's my birthday. Please, for once, consider me attractive. I mean, it's not a vibe. Also, it's something like your friends are kind of supposed to do. Like, send me nudes like we're friends. Like,
right.
It's like, ew. It's not sexual at all. It doesn't feel, it just creeps me out. I'm sorry.
It's also your birthday. So you want like Tiffany on Facebook from like 9th grade to send you her nudes, like her tasteful boudoir photos. Is that what you want?
It's the kind of thing also where I'm like, I guess you would write about it in the New York Times because send nudes is like a familiar phrase now. So it has legs of some kind. But at the same time, it is a little weird. It's a little dubious. Yeah,
20 years too late. They discovered Ishbol sooner than they discovered send nudes.
By the way, you say Ishbol all the time. And we want to say what that is. Ishbol is this, like you put it under a caption, it means I just burst out laughing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I really do bust out laughing. I mean, like, I laugh at a lot of your comments too. Like, you know, like I really do bust out laughing.
Journalistically, it's true. Yes. One might say this about you.
The other thing I will say about like the send news thing is I'm like, yes, you're like announcing it for your birthday, but I'm like, if you're that girl, you're already getting them, okay? Like, I got buffoons eating my pussy while I watch cartoons.
Is that a Megan paraphrase?
That's Lil' Kim, baby.
Oh,
that's hardcore
Megan's
97.
Oh, right. Megan's is while I watch anime.
Yeah. Megan watches anime.
You know my favorite Megan Thee Stallion lyric is, I don't stand outside because I'm too outstanding. That's my favorite one. That's my favorite Megan song too, Girls in the Hood.
I love the idea of you listening to Girls in the Hood.
I love Megan Thee Stallion. I listen to her all the time. This has actually never come up on the show.
I don't think we've ever really talked about Megan. And I feel like, you know, like I'm like very Barbie, like very Barb, but I feel like, no, I feel honestly, I get that because I would say that like Megan Thee Stallion, I feel like with one, like I feel like she has like the best of like, you know, like a Nicki, like Lil' Kim vibe of like the raptress, but also like she has the performance element of like a pop star that you would like. And I feel like also her songs are very, because she has so many interests, like Girls in the Hood sounds very much like, it almost sounds like 90s, like Queen Latifah, like Salt and Pepper, like ish. Like I feel like she harkens back to like, she's having fun. And that's what I want.
Yes.
I want the girls to have fun.
Witty, good vibes. Yeah. You know, social. Yeah.
And honestly, it's like,
I've gotten really into Traumazine. I think that I underrated that when it came out.
That was like a really underrated album. And I feel like it has like a lot of really good songs on it. And I would also say that like she and just like Cardi B in general are just like two really fucking likable female rappers. Like they're so fucking funny. And everything about them when you meet them seems very genuine.
Yeah, right.
And it's not a put on as a celebrity. It's like we said before, it's like you put Cardi B on like the way that like you're watching old like interviews of like, you know, celebrities from like the 80s or 90s on like talk shows. It's just like there's gonna be like some faggots like 20, 30 years from now like watching old Cardi B interviews because like she's just so fucking funny.
Effortless personalities.
And Megan is too. And I'm actually like first of all, you know that Munchkin went to jail. He's going to jail. Tory Lanez. But I feel like I'm really looking forward to this chapter being behind Megan's life because I just feel like it's so like dark. And I'm looking forward to her like coming through with like that burst of energy and like, you know, joy that we really like in her, you know, and like
she did LA Pride this year, and she was a pure joy from start to finish. You know, she can, and also
she's so amazing.
Cool
live.
that she did that.
She's so fucking amazing. Live. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to like Megan's next chapter, like past all this shit. So
likewise.
Yeah.
All right, I guess that's our episode this week.
Yeah.
And I hope you loved Idina as much as we did. Man, I had a blast with her.
Girl, she was giving it to us.
I thought so. Yes.
Top guest.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yes, we got into it.
Yeah. Idina Menzel, and also thank you to Kyle Turner for being here with us. And we'll see you next week.